process is giving an opportunity for people to express their concerns, their desires, and their vision for how we manage this issue. And I want to thank all the citizens who turned out for that, and even those who did not come out to those meetings but have been hitting our Lynchburg is Listening website and sending us email. Don't stop. That phase of the project isn't over, even though we're moving into the next sort of development. And I want everyone to know, and everyone needs to hear this very loud, the beginning of what promises to be a very rich conversation. So I just want to thank everyone who's been involved and encourage everybody to remain involved. It's also important for me to point out that the steering committee, which has been, as I said, working for the last few months, has made absolutely no decisions whatsoever with regard to outcomes. We continue to approach this issue without prejudice, without discrimination, without closed-mindedness, as we begin a process that really is going to involve identifying every possible solution that we can imagine, analyzing each of those solutions carefully, and developing a work product that then we send to the appropriate authorities, the people who actually have the authority to make final decisions. And of course, that's going to be a project that is split in different ways between the school board and city council. Where are we now? Why have we convened this press conference today? As you know, the steering committee that was created, which had 2 members of council and 2 members of the school board, was not ever designed to be the final version of a task force that actually will be responsible for making recommendations to the school board. That was an initial effort to sort of shape the conversation. We're now at the point where we need to start digging into data. In order to do that, the steering committee has come up with a structure for what the continuing effort will look like. We intend to create 5 subcommittees, and these subcommittees will each be asked to respond to a series of questions or a series of possible scenarios based on their particular sort of charge. The first subcommittee is going to be a finances subcommittee. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to, as the task force, will have to outline what we want the finance committee to look at in terms of finances. In other words, tell us what the financial impact would be of A, B, C, etc. We're also going to have a facilities subcommittee that will work basically on infrastructure and building. What will the impact be of various options as we think about what needs to get physically built? We're going to have an educational plan subcommittee that is designed to respond based on what the impact educationally will be. And we are going to have an extracurricular activities subcommittee that would look at athletics and band and just all of the different activities that people are involved in outside of the strict educational plan. We then have a 5th subcommittee that we're also convening, which will be called the Community Impact Subcommittee. And the Community Impact Subcommittee will be asked to consider the issues or scenarios or questions that we pose to it from a broader perspective. How will our educational system interact with higher education, with local businesses? What will the social implications be for greater Lynchburg as we ponder the various options at our disposal? So we will have those 5 subcommittees. What we have decided to do is to enlarge our task force, or actually create our task force, and that task force will include the 4 original members of the steering committee. I'm going to let Al actually go through the names and positions of all those things, but we'll have the 4 original members, 2 of whom will be at-large members of the task force. And in addition to that, we will have a couple of additional at-large members, and we will have the chairpeople of each of those subcommittees, so that the task force will actually contain 11 people. The plan that we have working forward, and this is not a final detailed plan, because quite frankly it would be wrong of me to give you a final detailed plan when the task force has not yet convened to develop its own plan. So the first job of the task force is going to be to develop a detailed calendar. Roughly speaking, we anticipate that the subcommittees will be formed in the very, very near future, and that we have a lot of names from those community meetings. We're going to work with the subcommittee chairpeople to help them develop their subcommittees. Those subcommittees will have to respond to the questions we pose to them over the next few months, so over the course of the spring. By the end of the spring, early summer, we expect the subcommittees to deliver its work to the task force. The task force will then digest all of that information, and over the summer and into early fall, develop its work product that it will then hand off to the school board, hopefully by the end of the summer or early fall. When I mention work product, I mean work product. It might contain some recommendations. There may be some options that are clearly non-starters or some options that are really exciting. But frankly, it's not the task force's job to make any decisions. So much more likely, the task force is going to hand off to the school board an exhaustive analysis of the various options so that over the course of the fall, the school board will have a good amount of information for its deliberations, and hopefully it can come to a decision and hand that off to council approximately 1 year from now. That means that 1 year from now, if all goes well, council will be asked by the school board to consider various funding options for the option that they select as being the most viable. That's really our sort of rough calendar and where we're at and why we're here. I think we've assembled a tremendous team. I want to thank the steering committee members for their hard work. We have worked together like a well-oiled machine. It has been efficient. It has been friendly. We have all just enjoyed getting to know each other a little better and working together. Turner Pero could not be here today. He's the other council member that serves with me. Al Billingsley, the vice chair, is the steering committee, is here, and so is Charlie White, also from the school board. I look forward to continuing working with those folks as we unveil the larger task force. And I'm very, very excited about the larger task force because I do think we have assembled a top-notch team that will move this forward. In order to introduce those task force members and give you a little bit more information about that, I want to call up our unfortunately hobbling vice chair here, Al Billingsley. Al will have the pleasure of actually listing out names and giving you a little bit more discussion about sort of where we're heading next. So Al Billingsley, school board and vice chair of the steering committee, soon to be task force. Al.
Thank you, Mike. It is my pleasure to be here today and introduce the names of the people in the task force. As Dr. Gillette mentioned, the steering committee, consisting of 4 of us, will be absorbed into the task force. Dr. Gillette will remain the chair. I will remain vice chair. Mr. White and Mr. Turner-Pero will become members at large, and they will be joined with at-large members Ingrid Hamlet and Mr. Robert Miller. Mr. Robert Miller is here today. Also, we have, as he mentioned, the Educational Plan Subcommittee, and that will be chaired by Mr. Roger Jones, Dr. Roger Jones. The Facilities Subcommittee Chairperson, Dr. Jim Mundy, and I see Dr. Mundy is here as well. Thank you for coming. Extracurricular Activities Subcommittee Chairperson is Jenny Poore. The Finance Subcommittee Chairperson is Lyle Schweitzer. Community Impact Subcommittee Chairperson is Dr. Sally Selden, and that will make up our task force. And as he has mentioned, as Dr. Gillette mentioned, from this point forward, the task force will get together and decide on the charge for each subcommittee. Each subcommittee will then form its own committee, the personnel that it surrounds that, and they will report back to the task force. The task force will then, at some point in the end of this summer, hopefully, take all the data that's been generated by the task force subcommittees, come up with a list of scenarios or possible options, data, and turn it over to the school board. The school board will then analyze that and come up with their recommendation to City Council. That's about all I had to say. Unless someone has any questions for Dr. Gillette, myself, that was about it.
Thank you, Al. And what I'd like to do is there are several members of the task force who are here, and I'd like for them just to rise and be recognized. I think you know who most of them are, but if you want to rise, please, Robert, Jim, Charlie. So we have several members of the task force here with us today, and Al and I, of course, will continue in our leadership role with that. I think that's all that we have for our formal announcement, and Al and I can stay up here since you probably don't want to move a whole lot. We just stay put for a moment and see if anybody has any questions, and if not, then we'll adjourn, and of course you can grab anybody that you like for any questions afterwards. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask of us right now? Yes?
About how many people per subcommittee is the general thought at the moment?
We have not wanted to get too far into developing the subcommittees prior to the task force meeting and sort of answering that question. Al did a tremendous amount of work in going through all of the material that came from those small group meetings. Every name, there were little blue forms that people filled out, and then people also went online and filled out those forms. And Al should get tremendous amounts of credit for just going through those things carefully and trying to match up likely ideas of where those names might fit on the subcommittees. But we don't want to preempt the subcommittee chair people. They need to be given some level of autonomy to be able to assemble a team that they think is going to be able to do the work very, very efficiently and well. So that's to be determined. But there still will be ample opportunity for people to be involved.
I might want to also add that the subcommittees, however large they may turn out to be, not everybody who is signed up may possibly end up on a subcommittee. However, the subcommittees are free to look to particular people to help in general areas or specific areas of expertise, or even form other subcommittees under them. It's really kind of up to the subcommittee chair people how that kind of falls out.
It's also possible, we have not decided this yet, again, because we didn't want to do anything that would limit the options of the task force, because now the task force really needs to be making decisions about how to move forward. It's possible that after the subcommittees do their work, and either before or during the time that the task force is examining the data that comes from those subcommittees, there may be an opportunity for additional community meetings where we can sort of bounce some ideas back to the community, as we did with those 3 meetings at the middle schools. We may have another round of those where we bounce some ideas back to the community and start to get a feel. Of course, now we'll have a lot more information to be able to present to the community. It won't be quite as open-ended, and that